This is an individual tragedy as well. Autism destroys families. More importantly, it destroys our greatest resource, which are our children. These are children who should not be suffering like this. These are kids who, many of them were fully functional and regressed because of some environmental exposure into autism when they're 2 years old. And these are kids who will never pay taxes, they'll never hold a job, they'll never play baseball, they'll never write a poem, they'll never go out on a date. Many of them will never use a toilet unassisted. And we have to recognize we are doing this to our children.
Not sure how RFK Jr. thought it would go over when he decided to tell the country that autistic Americans can't be artists, can't play sports, date, or most importantly, to leeches like this administration is full of, pay taxes.
A new CDC report shows a continuing rise in autism cases here in the U.S., and this comes as the Department of Health and Human Services is launching a massive testing and research effort with a goal to identify what has caused what they're calling an autism epidemic. But one reason why there's a rise, the report says health systems have gotten better at identifying and diagnosing autism. The newest data shows that autism rates among 8-year-olds climbed from about 1 case in every 150 children in the year 2000 to 1 in 31 children in 2022. The prevalence of autism was higher among boys than girls and higher among Black and brown children compared with white children. The report also found rates can really vary depending on location. For example, in 2022, the prevalence of autism ranged from Texas, with having the lowest rate at 9.7 cases for every 1,000 children, to California with the highest at about 53 cases per 1,000. But again, one reason for this difference could possibly be that California has regional centers throughout the state and initiatives to do more testing for the disorder.
So just like during the outbreak of COVID, RFK Jr. is clueless to the advancement of testing and awareness as a reason for more people being diagnosed. Remember, Trump admitted that he wanted less testing for COVID so that there would be fewer numbers of people that actually had it.
When you do testing to that extent, you're going to find more people, you're going to find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
These guys have been showing their asses for a long time, and we keep putting up with their incompetence. But what also stands out about the extremely anti-vax RFK Jr. is that despite his embarrassing confirmation hearings that repeatedly exposed his ignorance on the subject, he's inserting those beliefs into this conversation about autism.
There are reports that the CDC plans to study a supposed connection between autism and vaccines, despite dozens of studies showing no connection between the two.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has recently delivered contradictory messages on vaccines. In one interview recommending them,
it's one thing to say the measles vaccine is the best way of preventing spread, but it's another thing to then say, and therefore, we suggest that you get the measles vaccine.
We encourage people to get the measles vaccine.
While in another, again raising questions about a link between vaccines and autism that has been thoroughly studied and debunked.
The studies that they did were very, very narrow.
More than 25 years ago, a supposed link between autism and the measles, mumps, and rubella vaccine was put forward by British doctor Andrew Wakefield, a gastroenterologist and surgeon who in 1998 authored this study in the Lancet Medical Journal. The study was based on just 12 cases of vaccinated children, but contained no control group, patients who hadn't been vaccinated for comparison, and it relied on parents' memories rather than official records. It was quickly criticized for its flaws and later revealed that Wakefield hadn't disclosed conflicts of interest, that he was being paid to work on a lawsuit against vaccine companies, and that he had falsified some medical records to support his conclusion.
Listen, it's much easier than we're allowing ourselves to believe to ignore people like this that are exposing themselves as con men and get-overs for the sake of our society. But instead, too many of us buy it, despite scientific research, and then harm ourselves in the process.
We were able to show that he'd manipulated it, the study, and fabricated the appearance of a link with autism for personal gain and personal glory. And the result of that was that he was banned from medicine and the research paper that he published was retracted by the Lancet.
Yet the alarm he created was real, leading to falling MMR rates and rising measles cases. Researchers around the globe set out to test Wakefield's findings, with studies that track large populations over time, that compare affected groups against those without a condition, and that analyze other research.
If this concern was genuine and well thought out, the HHS secretary would move on from his repeatedly debunked theory on vaccines and understand that serious scientists do have some answers.
Official estimates began in 2000 and show the rate in children jumped from 1 in 150 that year to 1 in 31 in 2022. Still a huge increase. And researchers say there are a lot of reasons for that. Some we understand, but many we don't.
The first is changes in how we diagnose people or who we're including as having autism. The second is changes in recommendations from the American Association for Pediatrics to what pediatricians should be looking for in signs during wellness visits. The third reason is due to increased awareness and acceptance of autism in our communities. And then the fourth is changes in some trends over time for factors that we know are associated with increased likelihood of autism. Things like preterm birth and fathers being older in age when they're having children.
But those alone don't explain all of the increase.
Some of the things my lab studies and has focused on have been genes and how genes contribute to autism and how environmental factors also contribute to autism and brain development.
Environmental factors like the air we breathe, what we eat and drink, infections, and many more.
There are so many factors in the environment. The question is where to look. And when you look for one, you find that interacts with another one. This question has been so thoroughly investigated, one could argue, why throw even more money at a question that has been answered when that money could be better spent trying to figure out what does cause autism, not what doesn't cause autism?
It's a good question that keeps popping up after just 3 months of this administration's existence. Why do they always opt for the most destructive and senseless approach to their decisions? Well, there is a good chance that it's based in money, revenge, or eventual control over more of the population. So after RFK Jr. was confronted with the reality of a measles outbreak after he preached for fewer people to vaccinate their kids, it could simply be a case of people so against being wrong that they'd rather burn everything down than admit and adjust. Whatever it is, they're a danger to society.
This morning, an unvaccinated child has died from measles, officials say.
There's a measles outbreak in Texas at the moment in which a child is reported to have died. Do you have concerns about that? And have you asked Secretary Kennedy to look into that?
Well, why don't we, Bobby, do you want to speak on that?
No, we are following the measles epidemic every day. I think there's 124 people who have contracted measles at this point in Kings County, Texas. It's not unusual. We have measles outbreaks every year.
Kennedy also saying hospitalizations were done mainly for quarantine, though healthcare providers on the front lines say that's not true.
We don't hospitalize patients for quarantine purposes.